Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive, data-driven reality check. We are taking an unflinching look at Chinese Culture University, or PCCU for short, and we're going to map out exactly where it currently stands in today's fiercely competitive higher education landscape. We've got the data, we've got the context, and we are ready to unpack it all. Let's get right into it.
So, remember our last explainer? We analyzed the popularity metrics of 23 different universities. We looked at elite institutions like National Taiwan University, Chengchi University,阳明交通, Cheongkong, and Tsinghua. We also looked at mid-tier universities, schools like Fengchia, Tamkang, and Chengyuan. But when we overlay PCCU onto that exact same dataset, a pretty harsh truth emerges. It is significantly lagging behind even those mid-tier schools. And we have to ask, why? And exactly how far behind are they falling?
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. Defining popularity. 2. Macro shocks. 3. Humanities and business. 4. STEM and design. And finally, 5. The structural crisis.
Section 1. Defining popularity. Measuring the metric.
Now, it's really easy to just casually say a school is struggling or popular, right? But how do we actually measure that objectively? We can't just look at who enrolled. That doesn't tell us who actually wanted to be there versus who just settled because it was their backup plan.
To get the real picture, we use our popularity metric. It combines two really powerful data points. First is the sequence, basically the number of students nationwide who can pass the first stage screening. A smaller sequence number means it's way harder to get in. Simple enough. Second, we look at the fill rate, which is the percentage of eligible students who actually put that specific department on their preference list. We multiply that fill rate by the inverse of the sequence, take the square root, and boom, we have a definitive, completely objective mathematical popularity score.
Section 2. Macro shocks. External disruptions. You have to look at the absolute roller coaster these schools have been on over the last few years. Back in 2022, the new curriculum guidelines rolled out. Students were confused, they were nervous, so they filled out their preference list super conservatively. Top students aimed lower just to be safe, which actually created this false sense of stability for schools like PCCU. Fast forward to 2024, the government hands out a 35,000 NT dollar tuition subsidy for private universities. But get this, the data shows it didn't bring students rushing back to PCCU. Instead, it helped competitor schools like Suzhou and Chengyuan, as students just consolidated at the top of the private sector. Now heading into 2026, PCCU is staring down the barrel of massive, desperate restructuring and downsizing.
But here's the thing. The demographic cliff, that's not the whole story. PCU recently faced a huge scandal where they were caught short-reporting enrollment vacancies. They didn't truthfully report the unused quotas from early admissions. And guys, this wasn't just some clerical error. It was an active attempt to artificially hide their vacancy rates. The result? It severely damaged the school's credibility. It destroyed student and parent trust far faster than shifting demographics ever could.
Section 3. Humanities and business. Department autopsy. Let's break down the actual majors.
Let's start by grouping the social sciences and humanities. We're looking at law, financial law, and corporate finance, along with psych counseling, social welfare, and public admin. And then you've got labor and HR, politics, political economy, philosophy, and history. Now, financial law and psych counseling, they're managing to survive, basically hanging on by the thread of past reputation and a very specific niche appeal. But the traditional majors, like labor and HR and history, are in a severe, rapid freefall. Why? Because they just aren't aligning with today's high-tech job market.
And we need to be completely direct about PCU's absolute strongest department, law. PCU Law is the pride of the university. It sits at a popularity index of 0.0000333. Okay, but when you put that up against a peer mid-tier institution like Suzhou University, whose law program scores a 0.000154, PCU's flagship program isn't just trailing, it is lagging massively. We're talking nearly 5 times behind. We can't pretend that gap doesn't exist.
Let's move over to communications and arts. Historically, PCCU was famous for this stuff, right? Mass comm, journalism, advertising, infocom, drama, and Chinese drama. But the reality is traditional media is shifting. Plus, the remote location of the PCCU campus makes doing media internships down in the city a total nightmare for students. Today, these historically famous programs are sitting at only 60% of the popularity of Tamkang University's equivalents. Programs like Chinese drama? They're going incredibly cooled.
Okay, what about business?
They offer international trade, international biz, accounting, finance, marketing, and commerce. Honestly, the data here is brutal. PCCU's business suite has completely lost its competitive edge to schools like Fengqia and Saikou. Because let's face it, today's business students strongly prefer convenient downtown campuses. They want to be near the action, not dealing with a remote mountain commute. Finance, in particular, has seen a really sharp drop.
And then we hit the language departments. Japanese, Korean, French, Russian, English, Chinese Cultural Creative, and Euro-American. Korean is surviving, but purely because it's scarce nationwide and driven by pop culture. But French and Russian, they are facing total collapse. With the rapid explosion of AI translation tech, students are terrified of what their job prospects will look like. These traditional private school language programs are at severe risk of outright abolition.
Section 4. STEM and Design. Missing the Tech Wave.
Check out these STEM metrics. We're talking electrical engineering, computer science, info management, chemistry, optoelectronics, applied math, and education tech. We are living in the middle of an absolutely massive global tech and AI boom. But because PCCU has spent decades building this really strong humanities brand image, they completely miss the wave. Their EE and CS departments trail far, far behind tech-focused private schools like CYCU and Fengjia. The high-scoring tech students just aren't even looking here.
Then we have what we call the marginalized core. I'm going to list 11 foundational departments really quickly: nutrition, animal tech, horticulture, forestry, atmospheric sciences, geology, geography, textile, life science, family science, and tourism. Now, many of these actually have incredible national scarcity. I mean, not many schools even offer forestry or geology anymore, yet they are suffering a severe vacancy crisis. The general social atmosphere right now is so heavily tilted towards semiconductors and AI that these legacy earth and life sciences are being deeply, deeply marginalized.
Let's pivot to design architecture, urban planning, and landscape. Architecture specifically severely trails behind Tunghai University and Tom Kong. The urban planning real estate track is also sliding downward. But you know what? This isn't just about academics. This is about physical, geographical reality. Listen to this quote straight from the data analysis. Youngming Shan's harsh winter weather destroys the appeal of late-night architecture studio work. If you know any design majors, you know they basically live in the studio pulling all-nighters. The freezing, rainy mountain climate and the terrible, sometimes literally dangerous commute up and down that mountain make these degrees super unappealing, especially when modern students have way warmer, more convenient options right in the city.
Section 5. The Structural Crisis, Zooming Out.
Let me hit you with one final, staggering number: 662. This is the ultimate reality check. Remember PCU's law department? Their absolute most popular, highest performing department across the entire university? It sits at rank 662 nationwide. To put that into perspective, rank 662 is lower than the absolute coldest, most obscure departments at public universities. Think about that for a second.
The data requires some tough love here. If you're falling behind, pretending the problem doesn't exist only delays the cure. The university's current strategy of just downsizing departments and merging them to artificially hide vacancies, that might make the spreadsheets look a little prettier for a year, but it will not fix the fundamental geographic isolation and industry alignment issues. The trust has been damaged, and the students are simply following the tech industry and city center conveniences.
Which leaves us with this final, massive question. If a remote mountain campus is actively driving away your business, media, and design students, is vastly expanding a downtown Taipei campus the only way for PCCU to survive? In an era of declining demographics, physical location dictates educational survival. It's a lot to chew on. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time as we continue to decode the data behind the headlines.